I'm here, Roisin Cleric from the Irish Political Roundup and Confident Women Ireland, and part of the canvassing team for the Countess. And I'm here in Kilkenny count. As you can see, there's no one even tallying for the count, which is really, really surprising. As Paul and myself, Paul taught me how to tally many, many years ago within the Labour Party, and then I left, and then Paul left. But it's really, really astonishing to see there isn't even anyone tallying here. But it looks like it's a resounding no, Paul, doesn't it, from the tally?
Yeah, I'd say from my quick look at it, you're looking at about 80-20 in favour of a no.
You know what, so I'm going to head up to Dublin Castle now and wait for the result. But it seems to be a resounding no. And I am thrilled and delighted. Irish women are speaking. Irish women are showing up, standing up and speaking up. And so are the men of Ireland. You know, we need to protect women and children in this island, and we need to keep the definition of a woman and save women's spaces, save women's sports, and save women's changing rooms. We need to save the definition of a woman. Hello, everybody!
This is a great day for Irish democracy. You know, there was a battle today between the people of Ireland and the political establishment, and the people of Ireland have won in that battle today, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. You know, there's serious questions now in relation to the government in relation to this. The government, I believe, tried to use this referendum as a backdrop to their elections in the next while. And in relation to that backdrop, they decided to create a number of amendments which basically amounted to virtue signalling, had no real benefits to anybody, and actually in the care referendum had a significant reduction in the rights that families had. An incredible situation. And the people have told the government where to go in relation to that. And I think critically it's really important that on the day before Mother's Day, that the people of Ireland have voted to keep mothers in the Constitution and the work that mothers do, the sacrifice that mothers do. I have to say, I was delighted that my mother was here today. She's 86 years old, and I was delighted to be able to give her a hug on Mother's Day on the fact that we kept mothers in the Constitution. For she gave me the gift of life and every other foundation that I have as well. So it was a great joy to be able to do that too. I think there are serious political questions here in terms of the government. It was very clear that Roderick O'Gorman was given advice by the Attorney General That advice stated that durable relationships would be confusing to the courts and that would increase litigation in front of the courts. Roger O'Gorman was asked that question in the Dáil and in newspapers. He said the opposite. He has misled the Irish people, and that's a serious issue. Not just the Dáil, but the Irish people in front of a constitution. And I think he has questions to answer. I have no trust in this government or in Roger O'Gorman, and I think he should resign as a result of what he's done. I also think that the opposition have questions to answer here too. The opposition have major questions to answer too. The political system is not listening to the people. The political system is ignoring the will of the people. There is a groupthink, a herd mentality in Leinster House where political parties are afraid to make decisions in case they fall down on the perceived wrong side of these issues. And, you know, in working class areas where Sinn Féin and the Labour Party and other parties get big votes, it's very clear that those so-called support groups are no longer believing or trusting in those political parties. The leadership of Sinn Féin and the leadership of other political parties are becoming marooned away from the people that they're meant to be representing, and that's a bad day for democracy when that happens. We in Aontu are very happy to have played the role we've played, along with other organisations, in making sure that the will of the people were heard today. From now on, what the government needs to do is to stop virtue signalling, and they actually need to make sure that there are real, tangible, bread and butter material benefits to different types of families and also to carers and to people in need of care, because that's not there at the moment. So many people who are carers or in need of care are struggling just to get a little bit of home help, nursing homes, or maybe even respite care. We even have a situation where the government is sending children into unregulated care centres, and those children are going missing at the moment. And I think people saw this type of virtue signalling that the government were talking about, and then they saw the reality and they voted against the government.
No, in your opinion now, as an experienced politician, do you think there should be an early general election?
Yeah, I believe that's it's clear. The people do not trust the government. It's clear that there's no confidence in the government. I think it's clear that Minister Roger O'Gorman and the rest of the cabinet got advice from the Attorney General. They ignored that advice, and in actual fact, in the Dáil and on the media, they contradicted that advice. And I think that shows serious questions in terms of this government. And as a result, I think that the confidence in the government is gone. There needs to be a general election soon. There needs to be a change of direction in terms of the gender ideology actions that these governments are taking at the moment, but also the bread and butter issues. People are fed up of the virtue signalling. They actually want to see real help given to families across the country. And on that basis, I have no confidence in Minister Roger O'Gorman or the government.
And in your opinion, in Ireland we have 33,000, maybe more, NGOs. That's an astronomical amount of NGOs who are all seem to be the government and politicians, political parties, spokespeople, and canvassing for the political agenda. Do you think there should be an investigation now into how many NGOs we have in Ireland?
I think we nearly have an NGO, one for everybody in the audience in this country at the moment, unfortunately. But I think what's happening is that the NGOs and the political parties and some of the media are actually feeding into this bubble, and they don't hear the people. They think they are the voice of the people. My father used to say that if you want to know what a person thinks, find out who's paying their wages. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that if you're an NGO and the bulk of your income is coming from the government, it is very hard for you then to say no to the government when the government puts pressure on you in advance of an election or a referendum to fall in a certain direction. And I do think we need to have a full review and an analysis over the value that these organisations bring and to the investments that they get. But I will say, NGOs that receive more than 50% of their income from the government should not be campaigning in referendums.
Peadar Tobin, as the founder of Aontu, you were a lone soldier there in the Dáil with Aontu. You stood up for the people of Ireland, and especially for the women of Ireland and for the children of Ireland, especially with all the child trafficking that seems to be going on, especially in Ireland, as child trafficking was on tier 2 before COVID, and they took Ireland off tier 2 of the human trafficking. But do you feel now that you were the only real opposition in the Dáil and speaking for the people of Ireland? maybe now more and more people of Aontu will be elected in the next election.
There's no doubt about it in my view, that Aontu has got the backbone to be able to stand up to the government. Secondly, one of the tools that politicians use in Leinster House is that they stick their finger in the air to find out whichever way the wind is blowing. Since we've been founded, our objective has been to critically analyse the information in front of us, to come to a decision that's both compassionate and has common sense in it as well, and then whichever way the wind is blowing, to stand up for that. And I always say that to all the members. Let's work out scientifically and evidence-based what the issues are, come to a proper decision on the basis of our moral compass, and then stand up no matter what comes your direction. And I think in this case, there's no doubt in my mind that Aontu were significantly closer to the will of the people on these issues than the government and the opposition parties. And they have serious questions to ask themselves in relation to why is that the case. They are not listening to the people. They are not listening to their base. They are not listening to their votes. And if they don't do that, they'll soon find their answer in the next local and European elections.
Peadar Tobin, I think that you may be going down in history as a pin-up like Michael Collins. On behalf of the women of Ireland, thank you so much indeed for being the voice of the women and children in Ireland.
Very kind.
I'm here with Helen Duignan, and we're outside the Dublin gates of a Dublin castle on the day of the count of the votes of the Irish referendum. Helen, it looks like, as you were saying off air, we're the women, we won the votes, and we're kept outside the gates of Dublin Castle.
Absolutely kept outside the gates. The optics are extraordinary. A referendum puts a question to the people. There's no right or wrong answer. The answer that comes back is what the people want. And here we are today. The Gardaí are keeping the people who voted out. The government does not want celebration. It doesn't want the people gathering in Dublin Castle to celebrate what they wanted passing. And it's like a further silencing, and it's quite extraordinary. And when the people voted for repeal, Dublin Castle was full of people celebrating. And when the people voted for equal marriage, Dublin Castle was full of people celebrating. Here we are today, being made feel like we are a minority that have won a minority issue. The people of Ireland voted to keep woman and mother in the Constitution. We voted to protect mothers in the home to raise their children if they want to, and we voted to keep the idea of family intact. And what have we got? We've got a freezing out and an extraordinarily, I would say, hostile reception to what the people want. So it really points to a massive disconnect between the people and government.
And now, do you think that this could be the start of maybe the Irish government start listening to women, because women of Ireland have not been treated too well, especially when you think from the mother and baby homes, you think from the cervical check, the Midamite, probably pronouncing that wrong again, and then the women of honour, and then when you think about what is happening with this referendum, women's spaces, the definition of a woman that's happened in Ireland.
Indeed, and I think that the government would be wise to cop on now that grassroots feminists are very powerful in this country, because what has won this referendum is grassroots feminism. The big parties, the National Women's Council of Ireland, all the hundreds of thousands that was poured in campaigning for months by government and government parties and organisations like the NWCI, and meanwhile grassroots organisations with no money have actually won this referendum. So women have political power, and the government needs to wake up to that.
The rise of the Irish women and the Irish mammies.
The rise of the Irish women and the Irish mammies, indeed.
Helen Duignan from the Irish Women's Lobby, thank you so much indeed for all your work, your efforts and your canvassing, and just being such a wonderful Irish woman.
Thank you very much, Roisin.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. I'm in here with Estelle Bertie. Estelle Bertie, you must be ecstatic at the resounding result that the people of Ireland have voted today.
I wouldn't say ecstatic because I think it's just kind of the start maybe of a return to proper due process and a bit of respect for the voting public and a bit of respect for women and women's voices.
Women of Ireland have voted.
Yes, they have, and
men.
We have to say, and men in support of women and mothers and carers and disabled people, you know, and their rights, and also for due process, which wasn't being, you know, it wasn't being followed. There was a great lack of respect for the democratic process, and a great lack of respect, in fact, for the Constitution. And I think the country has spoken so resoundingly. I really hope that our politicians, our elected representatives, are going to listen and stop listening to their 200k a year special advisors with perhaps dubious politics, and start listening again to the people who put them in their positions of power in the first place by voting them in. I think it's time they start listening to those people rather than these special advisors.
And start listening to and representing the people of Ireland who they're paid to represent,
Yeah.
and not the power brokers.
Exactly, and lobbyists, and you know, I think it's time they just actually went out and spoke to people like they used to do. Listen to, we could have told them that this was the feeling on the street. We could have told them, and they just weren't listening. And now I'm hoping that they will listen, because I actually believe that most of our elected representatives are there for good reasons, and that they do believe in democracy. I think everybody got sidetracked in the past while, and I think maybe this is the start. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's actually the start of a return to some decency in politics and respect for the voting public.
The NGOs, Estelle,
Yeah.
what have you to say about the NGOs? All pushing this, especially the female NGOs representing women.
Yeah.
They really, are they representing women like, let's say, the National Women's Council of Ireland?
Well, clearly the National Women's Council of Ireland were not representing the women of Ireland in this. You know, they blocked women. The amount of misinformation that was coming out of the National Women's Council, who, by the way, did not check with their membership organisations before they came out with a very strong Yes, Yes campaign. They did not check with their members. All of those women were ignored. So the National Women's Council, no, at the moment is not representing the views of women in Ireland. It's just not, nor the views of their membership organisations. So, you know, I'm not one of these women who calls for the National Women's Council to be defunded. I think the National Women's Council needs to be taken back by proper feminists and women's rights advocates. I think they just need to get back. There are great women working in the National Women's Council who are really, really on the side of women and will always advocate for women. And I think we need to call out to them. I think we need to call them in, if you know what I mean, rather than calling them out. I think we need to say, you know, let's start working together, and can you please get back to your roots and what you're supposed to be doing.
Estelle Bertie, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing for women and children and our sons of Ireland as well.
Yeah.
And that's really important to put in.
Well, thank you as well, Roisin, for all you do. But this was a very much a collective effort from grassroots women, feminists and women's rights advocates around the country. They have been working, we have been working collectively for weeks and weeks now, and so many women did so much work. So this is not down to one or two women, this is down to hundreds of very well networked grassroots women who really believe in women's rights.
And children's rights.
And children's rights, absolutely.
And safeguarding children's rights. Because when you safeguard women's, when you an advocate for women's rights, you are also safeguarding children's
100%,
rights.
100%, yeah. And so it's been a huge collective effort on the part of women, unpaid women.
Yes.
Unpaid. And and in many cases, you know, funding banners, you know, funding leaflets, going around the country. You know, there were groups of women and individual women funding those leaflets themselves out of their own pocket, and standing on streets and going out and meeting and talking to people and explaining to them what our issues are as feminists with these two referenda. And they were spending out of their own pocket. You know, these are unpaid women, and I think it's just a testament to, you know, the belief in democracy and the belief in engagement in politics amongst women in this country, even while we were being not listened to, deplatformed, etc. It's still there. You know, there's a beating heart in Irish politics, grassroots politics, and I think today shows that. So I'm not ecstatic. What I am is hopeful, and I think the rest of the country feels the same.
The old mammies, Irish mammies wooden spoon came out yesterday to the politicians.
Yeah, possibly the wooden spoon. Yeah, possibly the wooden spoon.
Estelle Berger, thank you so much indeed.
Not at all. Love